momentarily. Good evening and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the law office of Alan Butel here in downtown Las Vegas. Alan is a local attorney, handles criminal defense and civil litigation, and is a frequent guest on the show. So if you have something going on and you'd like an attorney, he's on the list we have at on the website. You will find a list of attorneys who appear here, and you can talk to Alan and see if he's the guy for your case. This show is about guns, related politics to guns, but generally self-defense issues. Fired Up comes up with a new show every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. on YouTube. They stay on YouTube forever, so if you miss one, you can go to YouTube, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, and see what we did. The radio broadcast has moved to Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. It's on the Nevada Talk Network. The main station is KELY 1230 AM radio. It's on. Also, you can go to their website, and the show actually plays in 6 different stations simultaneously, all in Nevada. So you can check that out if you are a radio kind of guy and can't get the YouTube show. Of course, I don't know how I'm going to tell you about the radio show if you can't get the YouTube show, because you won't know that.
There you go.
Anyway, we are here, and today's guest is murder defense attorney Clark Patrick. Clark is a regular guy on this show, and thank you, dear. Yes. If you would, a little bit about your background, and we'll delve into all the stuff that's going on.
Sure, Bob. I'm a longtime hunter and gun advocate and gun owner. In the late 70s, early 80s, I spent some time as a tank commander with the U.S. Army. And for the last little over 12 years now, I've been here in Las Vegas practicing solely murder defense law.
Tough way to go. Tough cases.
Some of them are very tough cases.
Anyway, if you have a question or comment, you can drop me an email at bob@firedupmail.com, the sign right there, or leave a message on my office recorder, which is there behind me also. And I will return calls or return emails. We check the phone recorder at least once every 24 hours. So if you wish to talk to one of our guest attorneys or our guests that are here, you can also just send an email to that and put attention to whichever guest it was, and I will forward it to them right away. Makes things easy. Everything goes through that bob@firedupmail.com. There's several hundred defensive uses of firearm every week in the United States, and usually they're not covered by the mainstream media, so I always pull a few out from here and there for listeners' education. Some are good shooting, some are questionable, sometimes they're just plain wrong. I think I got one of those tonight. But they're all food for thought. If you have a gun, you have a concealed carry permit, you keep a gun in your house for self-defense. I usually leave the names out of them. The idea of the show is to let you see what happened to real people in a real situation and what the result was. So we're going to charge ahead with that. One other little disclaimer. We're dealing generally, the guests and myself are very familiar with Nevada law. Next week I've got a California lawyer on also. But if you are actually involved in a real case, you have shot somebody or being sued over a gun accident or something like that, you need to get local counsel. The laws vary from state to state, county to county, sometimes city to city. If you're actually involved in a case, contact a local attorney who handles criminal defense. If you send me an email, I can direct you to some of them. In most of the bigger states, I know somebody there, but you need local coverage because the laws are different. Needless to say, what's a good shooting in Wyoming is not a good shooting in New York City. And there are varying degrees between those two jurisdictions. So local law prevails. You've got to have an attorney where you live. This first case I actually addressed last week. This is from the McLean Times Leader. And last week I had my friend Lenny Davis on, who's another firearms instructor and a counterterrorism guy. And I wanted to run this case by Clark when he was here also. What basically happened is a jury in Missouri acquitted a defendant who shot and killed a man from his front porch in September of 2015, and the defense was claiming self-defense under the stand your ground law that recently became law in Missouri. The 41-year-old guy, defendant, was found not guilty of either second-degree murder or armed criminal action, where this took place in Pineville, Missouri. He shot his resident girlfriend's 38-year-old ex-husband. Basically, the guy came over and wanted to yell at his wife or visit his wife or visit her for some reason. And they have gotten into it. They got what their version of a protective order to keep him off the property. Showed up. He's in his truck. He basically is yelling and screaming. The man ordered him off the property. The guy in his truck drives, according to the reports, at a high rate of speed down the driveway toward the house, slammed the brakes on, and is screaming at the guy who had come out on the porch with his semi-automatic rifle. And the defendant, fearing for his wife's life and his two children, the shooter's two children that are in the house, they're all living there now, he fired 5 rounds and killed the guy. As he was sitting in the driver's seat of his pickup truck 50 feet away from the porch where the guy was standing. His testimony was that he thought his wife's or girlfriend's ex-husband was reaching for a gun. Jurors were given the option of involuntary manslaughter if they felt the shooter fell short of second-degree murder but still warranted punishment. Instead, they cleared him of any offense. The defense attorney, his name is Ted Luby, said the jurors followed the law. He argued at trial that his client's decision to shoot was lawful because the ex-husband was trespassing, had made prior threats to kill the defendant, his ex-wife, and himself, and was acting in that day in a violent and tumultuous manner. Obviously, from the time dates I gave you, this was 2 years waiting to go to trial. The trial lasted 4 days, and I mean it's really tough on the shooter. I understand that because he's under a murder indictment, more or less, waiting for the trial to happen. But his attorney was able to convince the jury that it was reasonable based on their stand your ground claim, and they acquitted him. When I read this, I was absolutely stunned, and so I wanted to have Clark do a paragraph or so on what happened here, and
Sure,
to try and understand it.
well, that it is unusual that they acquitted him. I don't know if you mentioned that he was 50 feet away. You said that, but he was in his truck, had a seatbelt on. The truck was in reverse. Truck was running. He had both feet on the brake. So he was, at that time, he had stopped his advance toward the house, towards the people in the house, and was 50 feet away. You know, I think, like you said, this is a new law in Missouri. Everybody's kind of trying it out. This jury must have been people that were voting for or convincing their legislatures to enact the stand your ground law. And basically it came down to, we got the law we wanted, we can stand our ground, and so that we're going to say that that's what this guy was doing, so that the next time something comes up for the jury, it will be easier to find them not guilty. This is what this is called.
Future attorneys in that jurisdiction can refer to this case and say a jury's already decided.
Absolutely, that this was good. And yeah, the legal term for this is basically jury nullification, because you know, I don't know what exactly they were given the law in their jury instructions for manslaughter and for second-degree murder, and not practicing Missouri. I don't know exactly what the Missouri law says, but if you put Nevada law onto this, then yeah, you know, he's guilty of probably second-degree murder. And if the jury didn't want to do that, then they could have given him the manslaughter. But here They just said, we don't care what the law says, we're going to do what we want and find him not guilty. So, and once the jury does that, there's no going back. There's no trying him again. There's no second guessing him. Once their decision's in, it's final. And
yeah, that's what I want to make sure viewers understand. The jury's decision is the people's decision.
The people's decision.
I mean, you could appeal if there was something wrong with the case. The judge allowed evidence he shouldn't have, or so forth. But
well, the defense can appeal the outcome of a case if the defendant is found guilty for those reasons. The court made a ruling they shouldn't, or the prosecutor did something they shouldn't, and the defense can appeal a conviction. There is no mechanism for the state to appeal a not guilty verdict.
Jury not
guilty. Once you're acquitted, you're done. There is no appeal process. There's nothing. It's just that case is over. It never happened. You know, you spent 2 years of hell facing this and fighting this, and probably quite a lot of money. But at this point, it never happened, and there was no crime, and he can never be prosecuted or talked about or any of that ever again.
I won't bring up this case again.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the guy, you know, the jury felt the guy didn't do it, and I was not aware, as much as I hang around lawyers, that the case is not appealable by the prosecutor, even for trial errors. That was it.
Done.
Wow.
They're done.
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, that's the American system.
Yep.
And the other lesson learned from this is if you're in Missouri and shoot somebody, hire Ted Luby.
Right?
He's the man.
Yeah. Find out if he practices in any other states around Missouri, and you know if he's licensed in.
I'm presuming he's a Missouri lawyer. I didn't really say that.
Yeah.
He obviously he's licensed in Missouri.
Right.
But, yeah, that's. If you would like to help support Fired Up, I have copies of my book. Let me get on camera there. It's by Bob Irwin. The Reality of Armed Self-Defense. If you send me a note on the website, I will send you one for $10. Be sure if you send $10 or send the questionnaire to Bob at Fired Up Mail, I will get that and arrange somehow to. I can't do computer payments and stuff. So
PayPal? Do you have a PayPal account set up?
No, I'm working on just keeping the website open. I'm not a computer guy. Help if you're a computer guy. Back to more current news. Idaho State Journal and the EastIdahoNews.com. Where you're going to move. This might be one of your cases.
Yeah.
Reported on 9/8/17 in Downey, Idaho. It's in eastern Idaho. 34-year-old intruder from Pocatello. That's correct, right? Not Pocatello.
Pocatello.
Pocatello, is how that's pronounced. Forced its way through the door of a residence on Barnes Lane off Highway 40 around 4 a.m. on a Friday morning. According to the Bannock County Sheriff's Office, the intruder was fatally shot by the homeowner. He was struck by gunfire and died at the scene prior to the arrival of responding deputies. Authorities said no charges are pending against the defendant because all indications are the man opened fire in defense of himself and other family members who were at the home at the time. Authorities based their findings thus far on the investigation that all indications are the 34-year-old intruder was invading the home when he was killed. The sheriff's office said an autopsy is being performed on the deceased to determine how many times he was shot. The sheriff's office wanted to make it clear that it appears the deceased was acting alone. There's no evidence indicating any further threat to public safety, as apparently the home invader was the only, he didn't have any partners, let's say. Nobody out there still lurking around. The sheriff's office is not commenting on what type of gun was used, which is, of course, what everybody that calls me wants to know. What kind of gun did he have? Doesn't really matter.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. If you have the right to use deadly force, the type of weapon you use doesn't matter.
Shoot him with a howitzer, or you know, if you can't shoot the guy, you can't shoot him with a BB gun. You know, I mean, there you are. So, anyway, the sheriff's office isn't commenting on what was used to kill the intruder, or if the intruder was armed. The name of the resident is also not being released, according to the sheriff's office. The deceased was released, some further information, from the Bannock County Jail 2 weeks ago after being arrested on a felony drug charge. There's a surprise. The autopsy obviously will also determine if his actions were perhaps caused by drug or alcohol induced or something. Um, Kicking in a door at 4 in the morning in eastern Idaho seems to me like a really bad idea.
Really bad.
I don't think you could find a home there that is not armed. But anyway, it's just another case of having a firearm in your home is there to protect you, and is a critical thing to have. I'm sure that it took the sheriff's office some time to get there. This is out in the boonies, and you're kind of on your own. You're your own first responder, and this guy hadn't had a gun. Look at what the result could have been,
right?
So,
and here in Nevada, it's the presumption is if somebody does this, kicks your door in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you shoot him, the presumption is that you were acting in self-defense to save your life and your family's life. Whether he's armed, whether he's not armed, whether you shoot him with a 22 or a 50 caliber Desert Eagle, the presumption is it's self-defense and defense of your family.
So the jury can't presume when he says, "I really wasn't there to harm anybody." That's not a valid statement.
No.
I have to agree with that. A moment at Grant Defense, one of our sponsors. They're at Russell and Decatur. They manufacture AR-15s here in Nevada in their location, and some amazing Glock pistols. I would encourage you to stop by. If you're going to buy an AR or Glock, that you stop by Grant Defense first and take a look. Their back door is across the walkway is the back door of Dewey Animal Shelter, if you know where that is, on Dewey Drive and Decatur. So you can stop by, get a guard puppy, and get yourself a fine firearm at the same time. This is from WBRZ TV 2 on the 7th of this month in Baton Rouge. I mispronounce names all the time on this show because I can't read English, and I know that's called Baton Rouge, but that's not how it's spelled, but that's how it's said.
That's how it's spelled?
Huh?
Baton? Huh?
No, Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge?
With a French accent, it's probably better. A local man is facing multiple charges, including armed robbery, after putting a gun to a man's head in his front yard and demanding money just after midnight on Wednesday, 9/6/17, the day before. The incident took place at a residence on East Brookstown Drive. The victim told authorities he was in his front yard when someone walked up behind him and put a gun to his head. The suspect, identified as a local 18-year-old, then demanded money from the victim. He led the victim into the residence to retrieve the money. This, I presume, this is from the report. He led the victim, I presume, is the bad guy, leading the victim into the house to retrieve the money when a struggle broke out between the two. During the struggle, authorities say the 18-year-old pulled the trigger and shot the victim in the left hand. The victim was able to gain control over the gun and lead the suspect back to the front yard. He then held the would-be home invader at gunpoint until authorities arrived at the scene. The authorities discovered the gun used by the criminal had been reported stolen, not a surprise. He is charged with armed robbery with a firearm, aggravated second-degree battery, and possession of a stolen firearm.
If he was in Nevada, he'd get kidnapping on that too.
Yes, well, yeah. We do that, if you, it's funny Clark should mention that, because we had a few cases we were talking about on the phone where when you do an armed robbery, you go into a 7-Eleven, you say, "Give me the money," because the guy you're robbing is not free to leave. You've also kidnapped him. You don't have access to move him. You have to prevent him from moving. Is also kidnapping. Ask O.J. Simpson. He's aware of that now. Anyway, this was a fortunate result for this guy, the victim. An unarmed resident, though wounded, takes the gun away from his attacker and holds him for police. I'm impressed. This is one tough guy. You are so much easier, though, if you bring your own gun to a gunfight rather than worry about taking the one away from the guy who's there. And the reason this story is here is just a funny thing. I'm visualizing this confrontation, and he takes the gun away. The details actually were that the victims was shot in the hand, but what happened was he was shot in the middle finger. And I just had this vision of him flipping the guy the bird,
right,
when he got shot, and he got his bird finger shot off. In any case, you got to love his attitude. I suspect in the future he will keep a gun in his house.
Or on his person, he should get I don't know what, Louisiana should have fairly reasonable concealed carry laws.
They really do, and their courts have been, since all the stuff with the hurricanes and people shooting at looters and things, they have gotten a lot more pro self-defense than they had been in the past. And I don't know of any cases where Baton Rouge has proven to be a bastion of hating guns, other than punt guns when the guys kill 500 ducks with one shot. But,
well, it's Louisiana, Sportsman's Paradise, so they got to be gun.
Says that right on the license plate.
Right on the license plate.
What's the state that says live free or die? I don't know.
That Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, one of those.
One of those. They're not living up to that.
Yeah, no.
Jerry Creed, attorney at law, a friend of mine. He does firearms trusts and class 3 firearms trusts. Free consultations. He's out in Summerlin. If you have a firearms trust, I repeat this every show, the feds have changed dramatically in the last year the wording that trusts have to be valid. If you've got a trust you got off the internet, there were guys selling them for 99 bucks with a page and a half, and you just fill in the blanks and list your guns in section B. It now takes about 15 pages to write a firearms trust to get around all of the laws. Jerry Creed keeps up with that. I've known Jerry forever, and I would suggest calling him if you have a firearms trust, particularly a class 3 trust. They are really in the woods. 702-806-7777. You can remember Jerry Creed. His creed is get a firearms trust.
Nice.
I'll let Jerry use that. I'm not even charging him. Fox 59 News reported again on the 7th of this month in Warren County, Indiana. Police were searching for 2 home invasion suspects who fled after a Warren County man fired shots at them. Officers were called to the residence in the 1900 block of West 1050 North. Boy, how do people go to the right address in towns that work this way?
Right.
It's like trying to find a street in Salt Lake.
Yeah, it's the same thing with that.
They have exactly the same system apparently in Warren County. And anyway, this happened at 3:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. When authorities arrived, they spoke to the homeowner. He said 2 men kicked in the side door and entered his house without permission. One intruder beat him with a bat before he was able to retrieve a gun and fire shots at the suspects, who then jumped into a car and fled the area. Police say nothing was taken from the home and the victim received only bumps and bruises. One suspect was described as being 5'10" to 6 foot with a slender build and wearing a white t-shirt at the time. That's a great description. No description was provided on the other guy, so I guess that's a fair description. According to Indiana State Police Master Trooper Detective Sergeant Tim Kendall. And I can't fault this guy. So this is, dark 30 in the morning, and somebody comes in and starts beating him with a bat. The last thing he's going to be doing is getting a description. Yeah, I saw this bat coming at my head.
I bet he can describe the bat pretty well.
Yeah, there's an imprint on his skull to tell how big around it was. Or it says Louisville Slugger in reverse on his forehead. Anyway, this is another case where an armed victim had sense to keep his firearm in his home, saved himself from being crippled or killed. There are a lot of these cases every week in the United States, and this one just stood out, so I typed it in. But consider for just a single moment what would have happened if this guy had not had a firearm in his home.
Yeah.
He would have probably been beaten to death, certainly crippled. And I liked he'd obviously taken a firearms class somewhere, or he lived next door to a lawyer. He made the comment to the police that 2 men kicked in his door and entered without permission. That's actually a good defense.
Yeah.
So it clears up. Did you know these guys? Da, 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 you know, routine. I just have to think there's some legal background here that got the guy to say that at first blush when the police came in the door. That's the thing to add. He came into my home without my permission. I didn't know him, is what I don't know this guy, and here I am at 3 in the morning, and he entered without my permission. That makes it a burglary, or at least a trespass. In the middle of the night, it's a burglary. We're always talking on Fired Up about training. If you carry a firearm and keep one in your home, you've got to learn the safety rules and the rules of engagement. I do lots of stories about people getting themselves in trouble. Where I used to work at the gun store in East Tropicana, they do that concealed weapon class every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. It doesn't require you get a permit. If you have one in your house, you should take the class so you have some training. Watching 2 or 3 videos on the internet will not suffice. The difference between that and a 6 or 8 hour class. They run the class every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And the advantage here is they run the class those 3 days. If you show up, there will be a class. They average about 30 people a class. And so they can hold about 50. There's always seats available. You can show up at 8:45. I would suggest, however, that you go on their website, thegunstorlasvegas.com, and sign up. The renewal class, I believe, is $55. The regular class, full-length new class, is $75, and that includes everything, your ammunition, your target, everything. There's no extra charge for range safety equipment, like some places charge you for earphones. So anyway, it's a good class. They're still using the lesson plan that I wrote, so I think it's a great class. This is a story that I really don't like, and I don't like having to put it on. It's a story about misuse, idiot use of a firearm. This story has been carried several places in all the left-wing news, so if you think I'm giving away secrets to the anti-gun people, I'm not. The basic story is from the newstribune.com. It's took place on 9/8/17 in, I presume that's pronounced Boney Lake.
Boney? Yeah,
Bonnie would be B-O-N without one in, wouldn't it? B-O-N-N-E-Y Lake, Washington State, not the most friendly state to guns. A local resident, age 41, was sentenced Friday for the November 3rd death of a female neighbor. The resident shot at a fleeing car thief, but hit the 61-year-old woman when she was getting ready for bed in her nearby home instead. According to his defense attorney, the tools of the shooter's deceased father were in the vehicle. That's the reason the resident got his .40 caliber Glock and fired at the fleeing thief. He said, and apparently it was confirmed by the shell casings on the ground, he said he fired between 10 and 15 shots at the vehicle. The defense attorney said his client was trying to shoot the tires of the fleeing car. He also pointed out his client had no criminal history and that he is his mother's, who's got some physical problems. He's his mother's caregiver. The defense attorney said he regrets now and will forever regret the decision that he made in an attempt to salvage the vestige of his own father. He made a terrible mistake. That's the attorney talking. The defendant addressed the court also upon sentencing. He said, "I'm very, very sorry. I can't say that enough. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I was just trying to stop a kid from being a punk." The Pierce County prosecutor said the 41-year-old defendant took matters into his own hands instead of calling 911 when he saw someone stealing his Jeep. And an additional bullet was found in the living room of another neighbor. That one didn't hit anybody, fortunately. The sentencing of the deceased woman's, the deceased woman's, the family can make a statement to the judge on sentencing. And they said the victim was a babysitter for her great-grandchildren, cared for a brother suffering from cancer, and helped loved ones and so forth. And, all of that happens. But apparently this was a really nice 61-year-old lady who never hurt a fly. The judge had a lot of leeway. Apparently, I didn't put it in the story, Clark, because it was getting too long to fit on paper, but the prosecutor had asked for a minimum of 6 months.
Right, yeah.
And, did I put that in? Yeah, I guess I did. And the judge sentenced him to 8.5 years, right on the high end of the sentence he could give. Oh, I did put, yeah, the sentence of 6 years, 6 months in prison, what the deputy prosecutor had asked for. I don't really have a place to start on this. Using gunfire to stop a fleeing property thief is
never good.
Idiotic. That works in Texas usually.
But probably only if you don't kill somebody.
They have a law in Texas that says you can use deadly force to recover stolen property or stop a fleeing thief. But even they are getting here and there a little fed up with that on some of the shootings, that there was apparently anyway. I don't know. In Texas,
and this with 10 to 15 shots, it sounds like just kind of all over the place.
He fired lots of shots. There's no panic. People fire 10 or 15 shots all the time. I've done lots of cases. I know you've done lots of cases that happens, but it's because someone is charging at you with a machete, or cars driving, trying to run you over, and you can't sidestep, and your brain just says, shoot till the gun doesn't work anymore. You don't really count your shots. You get in that self-defense panic, and you fire all your bullets. Cops do it all the time, and they're all trained and so forth. So,
but not when the car is driving away from you.
There's no panic in this. The car is driving away. This is the only case I've seen where this guy violated every rule for self-defense firearms. Every instructor harps on in every class.
Yes. And the statement, he was just trying to stop a kid from being a punk, did not help him any. But my rant on this is that the judge gave him 8 years more than what the prosecutor asked for. And so what that tells me is that the judges in Washington, and I'm not sure about this, are like the judges here in Nevada, and they're elected instead of appointed. And when they're elected, they gotta do things that are not exactly fair, but will get them votes. And so it looks like, if this woman's family came in, they were probably crawling up somebody's something and pitching a tent, and they were in the media and in the news talking about this shooting, and the judge felt that the way to keep votes was to sentence this guy to 8 years instead of what would have been considerably more fair, maybe not 6 months, but something in between on the lower end of that. And so it just really, I don't understand every time that the legislature here in Nevada comes and says, we want to appoint our judges instead of electing them, the voters say no. And the really silly thing about that is I would gather 90% of the voters who say no have no idea about who the judges are or what kind of a job they do, and have no real way to vote intelligently on this. Judges need to be appointed. The other thing that I don't like in Nevada is when they say we're going to appoint them, then they want a retention election to see if they no. The federal system has it right. You appoint a judge, it's a lifetime appointment until they retire or until they do something so egregious that their peers say you need to either go or be censured for that. Because appointed judges are the only way that everybody gets a fair shake. Otherwise, the people who are paying the judges in their campaign are getting better treatment, and the prosecutors are getting better treatment, because no judge is going to get elected in Las Vegas if the prosecutors say, oh, he's soft on crime. So that's, I'm sorry, that was my rant on my soapbox.
Well, we do
for
remove
this.
judges. The Supreme Court can remove.
Yeah, but they should be.
And the Bar Association can disbar them, and then they would not.
Sure.
They would not be qualified to be a judge if they're disbarred.
Correct. But voting for judges is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, they spend a lot of money, and
Yeah.
who benefits from that are the gigantic law firms,
right?
And can you get elected as a judge, and can you get elected as a county commissioner and not vote the way the guy who gave you the $1 million wants you to vote?
Either the large law firms or the casinos.
They're human, you know. So I agree. There needs to be a way to take the money out of politics, and in judges, it's, you know, for the few of us that ever end up in front of a judge. But if you end up there in a major case like this or a major lawsuit, you better hope the guy is fair and honest. Yeah. And you go, well, you know, I just, boy, look out.
Right.
Court's supposed to be fair, but the judge, being the arbitrator of what's admitted into the trial and what isn't and so forth, controls a lot of it. This is a little better than the last. The Washington Times and WTVQ TV 36 reported on the 13th, which was yesterday, in Auxier, Auxier, Kentucky. A Prestonburg man was shot to death by his ex-girlfriend after he entered her house early Tuesday morning, according to a preliminary investigation by the state police. Investigators say the 35-year-old ex-boyfriend entered the woman's home in a trailer park just before 7 in the morning in the Auxiliary community of Floyd County. Floyd Country. That's the name kind of the trailer park area. State police said the woman who shot the intruder, who then fled. The Floyd County coroner, Greg Nelson, said the intruder was found dead in the yard next door. The victim had placed a warrant for assault for her ex-boyfriend the previous week. I'm reading that as our equivalent of a protective order.
Right.
That she was assaulted and there's a guy that did it, which would result in a restraining order. Court records show the ex had repeatedly hit and used his knee to strike the woman in the face, resulting in 16 stitches as well as broken bones. The woman has not been charged. Good. The case will be presented to a grand jury for consideration. This case also had a stray bullet that entered a neighbor's trailer, but no one was hit.
And I don't even know in this case if that's the key.
It's not. I brought it up because of the case. Stray bullets sometimes go into other people's houses, but it didn't kill anybody. So who cares? Unless the lady wants to sue for the hole in her
and I don't even know if that's key. I think here the key is, A, this was a good shooting because this man who had attacked this woman previously broke into her house. It doesn't say, but she probably didn't shoot 10 to 15 times. It was a good shooting, and this was a woman doing the shooting against a man who was trying to attack her. And I think all that kind of adds in, and even if the neighbor would have been hit with a bullet, God forbid, I still think that there was probably no charges coming, especially in Kentucky.
There wouldn't be the charges because she is firing in self-defense, and this is where we get the felony murder rule come in and things like that, where she's firing reasonably at somebody who is beat her face in.
Right.
So if the bystander is hit by the bullet, we're probably going to charge the guy breaking in with that injury. And kind of like the version of the felony murder. Certainly, if the person in the trailer died,
that's exactly what
apply.
That's exactly what this is classic felony murder, because he's in Nevada. He's doing a burglary and probably an assault, which are burglary is a felony under the enumerated felonies under the felony murder rule. And if he's coming in to do the burglary and somebody gets dead, then he's on the hook for the murder.
Yeah,
if it's
just because a round enters the next guy's house, it's what was happening that caused the round. And in this case, I say in Kentucky, probably nobody would care except the lady who wanted you to patch the hole in her trailer. Yeah. Probably went clean through anyway.
Probably trailer.
Even if it was a 22, which we don't know. Here we go. This is a really difficult case. This is from KSNB News 3 here in Las Vegas, and a lot of other media now. Their report was on the 8th, a couple days ago. Prosecutors say a gun that killed a 4-year-old Las Vegas boy was being kept between a bed frame and a mattress in a Southwest Valley home. The child found the gun in a downstairs bedroom on August 1st, picked it up, and shot himself. His parents are now facing prison time for failing to lock up their loaded gun. The father is charged with 1 count of child abuse, neglect, and endangerment with substantial bodily harm, 1 count of child abuse, neglect, and endangerment. The mother is charged with 1 count of child abuse, neglect, and endangerment. Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson said the boy's death was preventable, certainly. This is a tragic situation of a parent allowing a gun to be accessible by a child. I'm quoting Wolfson now. This is a tragic situation of a parent allowing a gun to be accessible to a child. It is as simple as that, he said. Wolfson says the toddler was alone in the bedroom when he found his dad's unlocked gun. The boy was playing with the gun when he pointed it at himself and squeezed the trigger. Prosecutors say investigators found another one, another loaded and unsecured gun, in an upstairs bedroom nightstand. Wolfson said it was a difficult decision to make as to criminally charging the boy's parents for not doing enough to protect their son. I have a grieving family. This is the DA talking, Mr. Wolfson. I have a grieving family. A mother and a father lost a 4-year-old child, in our opinion, due to their negligence, but the people have to be responsible for their actions. These are really tough cases. I've worked on several cases similar, and this is my opinion piece for that. It does no good at all to punish the parents. Their lives are completely destroyed, as is their entire family is completely destroyed. To lose a child like that when it's basically your responsibility is something that there's no coming back from. Mr. Wolfson's theory that putting them in prison will get others to take notice probably will not work. At least it will never be statistically proven. Child deaths by self-inflicted gunshots are very, very few. The number I want to give you is less than 200 in 10 years. I think the NRA came up with something like that in the United States. Humans will continue to have lapses in judgment. We are humans. I expect the DA will be attacked as anti-gun over this, that he's prosecuting the parents because he's anti-gun. He may be, and I'm not here to address that, but this action is not motivated by him being anti-gun. It's frustration he shares with everybody else in law enforcement. We have all, at one time or another, been called to a scene where a child was injured with a gun that was left out. Good people still drink and drive. They still text and drive, even though they kill themselves at an incredible rate. They do all manner of dangerous and stupid things. They usually just kill themselves, not their children. There's a lesson to be learned here: is secure your firearms, but the next fool that's going to leave a gun unlocked isn't watching Fired Up, and he isn't going to. Right. Wolfson will have a 24-hour news media grab on this, and another 24-hour grab when the parents are sentenced to 6 months or whatever. I don't know if there's other children, then the other children are going to be. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't think you can punish the parents more
than
But
they already have been.
Yeah, I
don't think
absolutely
that's-
understands Wilson's frustration with this, and he and I have been adversaries a few times, and on the same side a couple times, more adversarial. But I understand him in this, and as much as I know about gun accidents, I'd probably do the same thing. You have to. This is one of those, you have to do something. He's Don Quixote here,
Right.
charging windmills. It's not going to work, but everybody who's a cop or connected to the system is frustrated in this. I don't know if you've ever had a case where this happened in your area. You probably
No.
wouldn't, but what do you do? Like I say, I've been on the scene of one or two of these, and you want to choke the parents, but they're on the floor crying.
Right.
It's
Yeah, it's no one for the parents at any.
so, Mr. Wilson, I understand what you're doing, and if you watch Fired Up, I watch your show once in a while, the Las Vegas Law thing, whatever it is called. I saw a couple episodes.
No comment.
I understand your frustration, and in that we are on the same side. National Shooting Sports Foundation came up with a number of interesting things this week as we get into the kind of the et cetera portion of this show, the little nitty things that happened. The National Instant Criminal Background Check System figures show a 1,021,277 decrease in the guns sold from August 2016 to August this year. That is a decrease of 11.3%. Well, of course, the figures were much higher in 2016 because we were looking at Hillary.
Right.
And we had this incredible flood of people buying guns. And when she wasn't elected, why wouldn't it drop to 20% of what it had been?
Yeah.
It's because it's not Hillary saying she didn't like guns. It's crime that's causing people to buy guns. Crime has not gone down. If anything, it's more widespread because of the internet. We hear more about it.
Right.
But to me, this just proves the point that I've said all along, that people were buying guns because of crime. When I was running CCW classes in the middle of Hillary, and I'd get questions about, who are you going to vote for, or what do you think about this and that in class, which is really out of line for me to be doing political stuff in class. And I tried not to do it as the instructor. But when I take surveys, I'd say, well, let's find out. Everybody, we're just going to be anonymous here, and nobody knows who anybody is. How many of you are buying a gun because of Hillary? And 2 or 3 people would raise their hands. And there's 40 people in the room, and how many of you are buying guns because of crime? Some neighbor got attacked, or you got attacked. There's the other 40 hands.
Yeah.
They weren't buying a gun because this was CCW. They weren't buying a gun, though. That was the question, because of politics. 2 bills affecting firearms retailers are headed to the California Governor Jerry Brown. One is SB 464. It creates government standards for retailers to secure firearms when they're closed.
Because they just leave them out in the open when they're closed?
Because they need more regulations.
Wow.
And
lock them in a safe?
You look at that and you say, well, let's see, we should have rules. Well, we do have rules. National Shooting Sports, NRA puts them out, all this kind of stuff. NRA provides free inspections, and police department will come inspect if you wish to see, is there a better way to secure this, that, or the other thing. But when we pass this law, now we need inspectors for the retailers.
Right.
We need, what do you do if somebody's in violation? Well,
you got to find them.
You got to have a fine, meaning you got to have a statute that says this, and then he's got to be able to appeal, and then, This, if the local cops go out and they say, you shouldn't leave your guns in the parking lot in a bin.
Right.
They don't. Those retailers went out of business a long time ago. This, although it sounds good, we're going to make retailers secure their firearms. It's going to create a whole umbrella of ridiculous crap. But more work for the lawyers.
Yeah.
This is the Lawyers Free Employment Act again.
Right.
California, this is good. California Assembly Appropriations Committee halted SB 497, which doesn't mean anything with the number, but it would require no more than one long gun purchase in a 30-day period in California. Currently, they have a 30-day period, one gun every 30 days in California on handguns.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But now, because they actually do background checks on all guns, they have the ability, all the dealers have to send in know, copies, whatever, to the California We Keep Track of Your Guns Bureau, whatever they are. Now you can only buy one long gun in a 30-day period. So if you want to buy your twin grandsons matching 22s,
right,
you got to buy them
30 days apart.
30 days apart.
So when Springfield Armory had that really cool rebate thing where they send you 4 magazines and a holster and a thing, and I went down and bought 3 at the same transaction.
Not in California.
Oh, and they all had 17-round magazines too. and the best part about it was on the box was a sticker that said "Not legal for sale in California" with the high capacity magazine.
It is so stupid, and you know the gun show loophole rears its ugly head.
Okay.
The magazine dealers are there at the gun shows in Nevada, and a guy walks in, I want 3 30-shot magazines. You know, okay, here. And if the dealer is trying to avoid problems for their customers, which we always did at the gun store, we'd say, you know, you can't take these to New Jersey, California, Maine, or whatever it was. We have a list, and they know I'm not. These are from my friend who is in Arizona. I'm going to mail him these Christian. Well, that's fine. I don't care. I just want to make sure I told you.
Right.
And we had a little form that says, "I've been told this can't go to California." And sign with it, and that's the end of that. That's to protect us from being sued by the state of California for, conspiracy to import magazines. But that's just a lawsuit protection thing. But they come to the gun shows and they buy whatever, and that's fine. It's legal here. So another worthless piece of legislation. The city of Sacramento has pledged $1.5 million to pay 50 known gang bang members suspected of committing a majority of violent crimes, including those with firearms, to not commit crimes.
Oh, nice.
They're doing this someplace. I think
Wow.
it's a city in New Jersey is doing this, and someplace in New York.
Well, that's hilarious.
And they say it works, because if they come in to get their check and they've been arrested for a crime, well, convicted of a crime, then they don't get their next check. They can't get the money back they already gave the guy.
Sure.
Because
okay, so X is on the list of what keeps him from getting his buddy Y to go do the crimes while he can collect his check.
You just let that out to all the criminals watching this show how to get around this law.
Sorry. Sorry, Sacramento.
If they're caught, I understand what the do-gooder guys here are thinking, but if they're known gang members and suspected of committing this majority of violent crimes, how about charging them
and arresting them
and putting them in jail?
There you go.
I
bet you can do that cheaper than $1.5 million.
I didn't get what the weekly payments or monthly payments were. That wasn't in the article. But Sacramento will be a lot safer now because some guy will come to rob you and go, "Oh, I won't get paid next week if I get caught. So never mind, I'm not going to rob you."
That's really not
Or
even that
wear
much,
a
is it?
mask, you know.
Because let's see, 1.5 million divided by 50, that's only 30,000 a piece total.
And I don't know for how many
Yeah,
years.
for
They
how
just
long?
pledged. Other
So-
people are donating to this, so that's just one
Okay,
part
but
of it.
30. I mean, if they're any good at their banging, they should be making more than 30,000 a year selling drugs and running prostitutes. I don't know.
But upcoming gun shows. The Great Las Vegas Gun Show is September 23rd and 24th. That's a couple of weeks at Cashman Field downtown, Washington, Las Vegas Boulevard. We will have a table there, and Fired Up will be somewhere with Don Green, I believe, hopefully next to him, so we can work together. Crossroads of the West has one also at Cashman, October 21 and 22. I have still a number of passes for that, the number being about 15, I think. If you want to drop me an email to the address behind me there, I will mail you one of these passes to get in. So at least you can use that to bring your wife with you, and you can buy something real expensive and she'll be happy and let you buy it.
I just
Or
bought
not.
her a yellow diamond ring, so I'm good for a couple guns.
After Crossroads, we have Claude Hall's gun show up at the Sports Center on Sunset. We got a table there also. That's November 11 and 12. There are a number of rural gun shows, and now that we're on the radio and all rural Nevada stations that are carrying us, which is all over the place in Reno and Sparks and that, I will start listing next week. There's a lot of typing where all the local shows are that are in Reno and Armagosa Valley and so on and so on, because we have listeners out there that do that. Again, we are on YouTube, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, Thursdays, usually from 5 to 6 p.m. We started a little early tonight, so we can go home early. The radio replay is on KELY 1230 AM. You can find it on your computer if you look up KELY 1230 AM radio. They broadcast all over the state of Nevada. I don't think they have a transponder here in Southern Nevada yet, but I will find out why they don't. We'll be out next week again with firearms attorney Don Green. He's licensed in Nevada and California and does a lot of yelling for you when you're in court. He does a lot of work on when you get denied for this permit or that permit, the FBI turns down this or that. He writes great letters that cite case law and tell them they better issue you or whatever it is you're getting. So anyway, so he's doing good, and he will be here next week. Questions and comments again to Bob at Fired Up Mail. Have a great weekend, and I think we're right on time. Where's my little button?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Clark.
Anytime.
We'll see you again in a couple weeks, hopefully
Always
with
a
your
pleasure.
boss into it.
Yeah.
Figure
Sounds
it out.
good.
That's going to be so much fun.
That would be right.
Thanks for watching, you guys. Have a great weekend.